This session is Simplify Complex Pricing in Acumatica. My name is Rhonda Sutliff. I'm a product specialist slash project manager at Rockton Software. I've been with Rockton for about 10 years just this month. So I also have Jenn Schoemer with me. She'll be watching for any chats or questions as we go. So go ahead and enter those as you have them and she'll respond. In this session, I'll explain a little bit about Rockton Software, but also what Rockton Pricing Management is, what it can do for you, and also show you a demo so you can see how it works. So for those of you who have not heard of Rockton Software, we've been a software ISV for over 20 years. We have amazing products on the Microsoft Dynamics GP side, and then in the last few years have started developing products for Acumatica. We're a virtual company. Our team is spread out to 7 different states with headquarters in Erie, Colorado. I come to you from North Dakota, and Jenn is in balmy Minnesota. But let's get this session started and talk about pricing. So sometimes you have simple pricing, and it's easy to set up. Sometimes you have pricing you don't even know how to set up because you have people making it up as they go. So let's hope that's not the norm for you, but more often than not, you have some kind of pricing problem that you need to address when it comes to setting up your pricing. So I'm excited to talk to you about Rockton Pricing Management. We call it RPM for short. RPM was designed based on another pricing product that we have for another ERP, except for RPM is that product and much, much more. RPM is certified for Acumatica and it's available on the marketplace. So what is RPM? Well, it's a standalone SQL-based web application. It works with multiple ERPs through a connector. So in this case, the connector is added to Acumatica to tie RPM and Acumatica together. And with RPM, you can calculate multiple discounts on one transaction line. You could add a fee, have markups, calculate a rebate based on the amount of the line or commissions, or calculate royalties. Really anything you want to calculate. And then on top of that, you have date-driven pricing, you can have customer-specific pricing, you can even determine pricing based on a specific field on a customer or an item or a document. You can use volume or tiered quantity breaks for your pricing. And then you can also track your rebates and manage them that way. It's really flexible when it comes to how you set your pricing. So think of RPM as a great big calculator, and you can pretty much set it and forget it. So first, let's take a look at RPM in action in Acumatica. So for RPM, it will work with invoices, orders, quotes, whatever in Acumatica, but let's enter an invoice. Oh, I'm logged off. Let me log back in. So we'll enter an invoice. I'll pick my favorite customer. Then we'll enter a line. Grab an item. Enter my quantity. And so I can see that it calculated a unit price for me. And during transaction entry, the end user really doesn't notice anything related to RPM. It just works as Acumatica would. But if you change your view and you scroll to the bottom, this is where you can see the price adjustments. So these are calculations that were set up in RPM to calculate the price. And in this particular case, my price started as the item cost, but then it used a 30% markup and then also a 5% discount. It added a shipping fee that I just have added to transactions, and it also calculated a rebate. So I can have multiple calculations on one line that's calculating the price for me. I can also assign specific GL accounts so that they're all tied to their own GL account. I can determine if I want to edit the field. So in this case, I could zero out the fee if I wanted to. And then I also know whether or not the calculation is actually even modifying the unit price. In this case, I'm just calculating the rebate. I just want to track it, but I don't want it to affect the unit price at this time. So if I go back to my grid view and click View Diagnostics, I can see how that final price was retrieved. It will go through and show me all the calculations that it encountered and which ones actually calculated, if it met the criteria. So this is just a great way to help troubleshoot if you're getting a price that you maybe don't think is correct. You'll at least know where it came from. So also for this transaction, I had that 30% markup, and I have that based on my year. So I'll change the date. I'm going to change it to 2023. And when I tab off, it recalculates my unit price. And that's because for 2023, it used a 32% markup because I'm filtering based on that information. And we'll go take a look at that. So let's hop over to Rockton Pricing Management. So this is the web app, and you'll be able to access this through your phone, your tablet, desktop, laptop, however you want to get to it. And only those users who you want to be able to modify the pricing information would have access to this. Over here on the left is the menu, and we have this ERP data section. And really, it's just simply the data from Acumatica. But what I also wanted to point out here are these attributes. There's customer, item, and document. These attribute fields are just information on those records that can assist in setting up your pricing. So you could base pricing on the color, the manufacturer, a specific value of an item. You could base pricing off of a loyalty level, the class, the size of a customer, or you could even use the ship to ID or a salesperson on a document. That's what those attributes are for. And this just allows for greater flexibility in your pricing. And all of this ERP data information here is synced from Acumatica. So you don't have to maintain it in both places. It would still be managed and maintained in Acumatica. Now, the biggest section here is this pricing section. This is where you'd spend most of your time and is where you'd set up your pricing. So starting with price books. Price books are optional and just one of the ways that you can manage your prices. It's made up of price sheets. So a price sheet could be for a particular custom, a particular subset of items. It could be where you put all of your items in your prices, kind of like a price list. But they're also date driven, and they can also be based on a currency. So in this example, I have an annual pricing price book with multiple years set up. Then I also have a fall sale within my 2022 year. So you can have overlapping price sheets. But let's take a look closer at this price sheet. I have my effective dates, and then down below are my details. These are the items that make up the price sheet. And this is just a small subset, just for an example, but I have it based on an item. I can also use quantity rules like volume pricing and tiered pricing here. And then I can also assign fixed pricing. Let's see. I think that should be it for price books. Let's hop over to price schedules. I'm sorry if you hear beeping, there's a truck backing up. All right. So the price schedules, these are essentially the container for the pricing information. Price schedules are tied to the customer price class in Acumatica. So if you want to use a specific price schedule, then the price class must exist in Acumatica. And this is also true if you're using a specific price class in Acumatica, the price schedule would exist in RPM. So let's take a look at this price schedule. The name can be anything as long as it's descriptive enough for you to know what it is. And then the ERP ID is what will match the customer price class ID in Acumatica. Also, you can assign filters. You can use pricing filters. That's where you can base pricing off of two specific customers, items, locations, dates, any of those attributes we talked about, pretty much anything. But this price source option, this is where your pricing is going to begin. And in this case, I have item cost, but you could do it on another price schedule. So you could stack your price schedules. You could use the item list price. You could use the price books that we talked about. And you can also just use the value from the ERP. So whatever's in the ERP, you can calculate based on that. You can also use rounding rules. So you might want your prices to always end in 99 cents or end in a multiple of 5. You can do that as well. But this price calculation section, this is a huge piece of what RPM is all about. And these are what we saw on the invoice, those in that other section. They're ranked in the order that you want them to calculate. You can move the ranks around if you need to. Also, notice we have more calculations here than what was listed on the invoice detail. And that's because these different discounts have pricing filters assigned to them. So let me grab that column and pull it over. So for these two, the 30% and the 32% markups, it's based on the year. These discounts I have based on customers. So your discount depends on how long you've been doing business with me. So I've assigned specific customers to all of the different discounts. And so it would only use one of the discounts when it's actually calculating the price. The shipping fee and the 3% rebate, they will be on all the transactions that use this price schedule. But let's go look at this 30% markup calculation. So I have my calculation name. This is where I've determined that it's a price adjustment of 30%. You can also do a fixed adjustment. You can do it a percent of something. There's different options. The modify unit price, you want to mark this to make sure that you're going to modify the unit price. If you just want it to calculate but not affect the price of the item, you can leave it unmarked. And then this option is to determine if the calculations should start from the base starting price or if it should be after the last calculated price. And then the use value from attribute, that's just those attributes again, the customer, item, and document. I can mark this and base it off of a specific attribute. Again, we have pricing filters. You can have rounding rules, but this section is where you would assign those GL accounts, because I know a lot of people like to be able to tie specific discounts or fees or whatever to specific GL accounts. You would just make sure to track it, and then you can enter those accounts. Well, let's go to the price calculations, and we'll look at the 32% markup, just so you can kind of see the difference. It's set up exactly the same way as the other one, except for I'm using a different pricing filter. But if we go look at one of the discounts, since this is actually subtracting from that unit price, I've actually entered a negative 10%. So you can add it, you can subtract it, whatever you need to do. But also notice the from the base starting price is not marked, and that's because when it's calculating, I want it to take the item cost and add the markup. And then once that price is figured out, I want this 10% discount to be off of that price and not that item cost. If you wanted it off of the item cost and not the full calculated price, you can mark this option. So there's lots of flexibility when it comes to the calculations. One last thing, we'll go look at this fee. And notice this user can edit option down here. This just allows you to edit that calculation on the transaction. So again, I have a fee, but I might have negotiated to waive that fee so I could zero it out, and it would still show that there would have been a fee line, but just another option. Okay, so that kind of wraps up the pricing section. One thing I wanted to show you in RPM that is a helpful tool are these pricing scenarios. A pricing scenario lets you figure out what your price might be and kind of test it before you actually are using it in your Acumatica. So we'll go look at this one. I've set this one up ahead of time. I've entered the expected unit price. So this is what I think the unit price should be. Again, already entered my information, so all I need to do is click execute. It tells me it found a price, so I'm going to click results. And oh, it's different. So now I can use this view diagnostics to determine how it actually calculated. And for me, I know that it was wrong because I just made up this number. But this is what it would have been. And again, I can see my information here. These are my different price adjustments. So it's just helpful, again, in troubleshooting and testing those prices. So that's pricing in a nutshell. But now I bet you're asking, what if I change my pricing setup and I've already entered invoices? Well, let's go take a look at an example of that. We'll go back to these price calculations. And let's go to the add-on fee, and we're going to change it to $5. If I make that change and save it, I go back over here, I can see that this invoice has the $3 still. So I'll go and I can recalculate the prices. And I'll let it execute. And now I can see it has changed to the $5. So it'll capture that new change. So that's how RPM and Acumatica work great together. Using RPM allows you more flexibility in your pricing, less stress and less manual calculation makes your work simpler and easier, which is our motto. So I hope you found this helpful. Let us know if you have any questions. For more information, you can visit our website, which is on the screen. We also have contact information here. You can also contact me or Jen through acuCONNECT.